plan for everything, but you can be ready for anything. That's where we come in. Northwest Insurance Agency covers the wait, what? Moments in life with real coverage, real people, and real fast help. We offer sombrero-style coverage that protects your possessions, your loved ones, and everything else that fits under a sombrero. Call us today for a quote at 855-887-5656 or visit us at nwagencies.com.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let we go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Happy Monday to you guys. We are presented by our friends at Northwest Insurance Agency. Mark Villasana and his team can go over your insurance rates and coverage and help you find out if you are paying too much in insurance coverage right now and get you hooked up with what they can do for you. 214-352-5656 or email them info@nwagencies.com. Hope everybody had a great Father's Day out there. Not as good, I'm sure, as JJ Spahns with his dramatic putt to win the U.S. Open at Oakmont, but it was a good weekend nonetheless for myself, my family, and I hope it was for you guys as well. Things are heating up on the SMU football recruiting front, and I would categorize this weekend as a little bit of a downer to cap it and to be quite frank, but we will break down everything that it means for SMU football recruiting. We'll gloss over the news for you guys on the podcast, and then I've got some additional thoughts and intel dropping at ontheponyexpress.com. Head over there for just $1 and get the last official visit weekend covered there for you guys with all of our intel and news. We've added some staff. Dean Rolski and I are headed to Charlotte for the ACC Media Days. We'll be there all 3 days broadcasting live. Really excited about that. So tons of content to come, and the team keeps growing at ontheponyexpress.com. So it is a wild time with the summer really kind of winding down overall for recruiting in a way. Like you've got a few more days left before the dead period hits, and then you have a time where most of these 2026s will make decisions. We'll also talk a little bit about 2027s who can now be contacted in just about every sport. I think the rule is June 15th, so it started Sunday, that prospects can get contacted directly by colleges. So that'll be a big change for a lot of prospects. They'll get to see who's actually interested, who's not, all of those things. And we'll cover it all for you at ontheponyexpress.com. Basketball, football, any sport we can, we'll give it to you guys as best we can over there. But before we get going into the world of recruiting for SMU football, I do want to remind you guys about Mosquito Shield. Go to moshield.com. Andrew Galloway and his wife, Caroline, have been running the Northwest Dallas piece of Mosquito Shield for a long, long time now, doing great work. They service my lawn, and I enjoy sitting back outside right now, even though it's starting to heat up a little bit. Guess what? The mosquitoes aren't out there, so I'm good with it. Give them a call, 214-775-0622, and mention us at ontheponyexpress.com, or just say, hey, pony up, and they'll give you their best pricing of the remainder of the season. Again, 214-775-0622. They could also connect you around Dallas and other areas. If you want Mosquito Shield to service your yard, they can hook you up with the right people on that front too. So appreciate their support of the podcast. We had a subscriber shout them out on the message board just last week as well. So they do great work for you guys, and it's a time to get your yard serviced. Let's jump into what I would say was a kind of bummer of a weekend for SMU with some top targets. It was also kind of drama-filled on the linebacker recruiting front, and I do want to jump into that linebacker recruiting right now, a key position, in my opinion, for this 2026 recruiting class. And the news broke Monday morning that SMU linebacker commit Markel Dabney was actually at Michigan this weekend for an official visit. And this is a big, big deal for SMU because this is somebody that they locked in and got a commitment from in May. They kind of shocked the Wolverines with this one. And Markel, when you commit to SMU, that is normally not a situation where they allow you to take visits. So let's set the scene here, and this will be highly relevant to the other guys that we're going to talk about at this position. It is something that Rhett Lashlee and his staff feel strongly about, that if you commit, you go public, you sign the rock, that you are not going to take other visits. They will give you leeway if you're honest and say, hey, I want to go visit X school. I want to camp. I want to try to earn an offer. I've really always kind of, maybe eyed that school. Can I go and camp? Sure, you can go camp. They're usually pretty good about that. I'm sure there's caveats. I'm sure there's schools that they're going to say, you know what? No, we're good. But that's generally the kind of the loose thought there. When you take a visit to a program that has recruited you very hard, that you've already seen, and that you've, given a strong chance to earn your commitment on the front end, and you go back there after committing, that is a huge no-no. So I don't know how SMU is going to handle this with Markel Dabney. He told our On3's Steve Wiltfong that he had a great visit, enjoyed his time, all of those things. And Michigan's given him some things to think about. And I think you now are at a point with Markel Dabney that you need an answer quickly, and you need to see what direction you want to go with quickly. And you either got to lock back in, and you better be locked back in, or we're going to see SMU move on. Like, there's got to be some sort of, if Markel Dabney wants to be a part of this class, there's got to be some sort of, I don't know. I don't know if apology is what it is. I don't know how SMU would handle that or whatever, but it's, if he's going to end up in the class, and he wants to be in the class, he'll have to kind of, rectify this quickly. Whether, hey, is he going to come right back out and visit SMU again? Or is it just going to be a mutual parting of ways, or SMU not satisfied just says, you know what, we told you kind of how this rolls, and we appreciate you, and we'll move on? That is a question for Maurice Crum and this defensive staff to see how they play it, because you have a guy who you really like, plays both sides of the ball, has played multiple positions on defense, great kid, fits what they look for in a player, and, from a character perspective. And, recruiting, if guys do things and take visits and, are a little shady and things like that, I don't hold that as a character red flag too much, unless they're really, really, really being, shady, or trying to really hurt, the school that they're, going to, that they're committed to, and things like that. Markel's just getting pulled by Michigan really hard, clearly. And we'll talk about this in just a second with another commit of SMU. But how he responds from this is really how, this is going to go quickly. And I think quickly for SMU, because they have one linebacker committed. They've got another that they're really pushing for. Got a couple out there, really. And they need to have some clarity on how this goes. So we'll keep a close eye to see what happens with Markel Dabney. Again, Michigan was kind of viewed by some as a favorite going into the official visit for SMU. And then coming off it, Markel told me, hey, SMU's at the top. And then he ends up committing. Big deal. Even after that dust settled from that visit, he still, went ahead and committed. So a big piece here. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. We'll monitor it for you at ontheponyexpress.com. And I'm dropping some more intel on that as we get done. But this is relevant because Isaiah Young, who committed to SMU just last week, about a week ago today, was going to visit Baylor over the weekend. And when he committed, he called that visit off. And then Baylor kept pressing. And lo and behold, Isaiah Young, lets a Baylor reporter know, hey, I'm going to go to Baylor, and hear him out on this official visit. And fast forward, and, I texted Isaiah. I said, hey, is this still happening? Is this a thing? And he called me. He said it was going to be but like I talked with SMU and this is, the right place for me and this is where I want to be and all those things. And, I just have a hard time telling people no and things like that. So he talked with his high school coaches, he talked to SMU, and eventually he called off the visit. So that is certainly a big, big deal for SMU. They love Isaiah Young. They love what he brings to the table. He's been a long time target for the staff. And so for them to fend off this Baylor official visit was a big deal. But this coming weekend, at least from what he told me, Isaiah told me, he's going to go camp at Ole Miss. And he's going to try to earn an offer. And SMU knows about it. But at the same time, he's never been to Ole Miss. Ole Miss, in my opinion, is probably full. I don't know if they'll offer, but a former high school assistant coach of his is now at Ole Miss. So there's some ties to San Marcos there. So he's going to go see them, camp, and just do that. And SMU's okay with that, from talking with sources and talking with Isaiah. Isaiah was up front with them about it. So it's this crazy kind of, caveats everywhere thing with commitments, but overall, SMU's pretty steadfast in their approach. If you go visit somewhere that's actively recruiting you and you've already been in particular, and you aren't upfront with us or this or that, it's we've got a problem with it. And so Isaiah Young being upfront with SMU about going to at least go camp at Ole Miss is something that they're okay with from what Isaiah has told me. So that is something to keep an eye on, but we'll see right now kind of where things stand with that once he goes there, if he still goes there. But so you have two kind of opposite ends of the spectrum on how the recruiting drama went down and how the direction it's heading with those two guys. And then you have a key figure in this whole thing, and that's Kenneth Goodwin III out of California. And SMU is pushing for the 4-star linebacker, 6'2", 205 from Bishop Montgomery out there. One of the top linebackers in the country, was actually at Michigan this past weekend, funny enough, with Markel Dabney. And the interesting thing for this, whole just discussion around this position is if SMU and Markel Dabney see a parting of the ways, does this really bolster SMU's chances with Kenneth Goodwin? Because we are in today's day and age of revenue sharing. And when you go and talk about rev share and you talk about how much you could earn, everything has a slot. Schools prioritize different positions differently. Schools prioritize different players differently. And with SMU having 2 linebacker commits right now, SMU is hammering away on Kenneth Goodwin from a standpoint of, well, they really can't necessarily like, give out a ton more in revenue share and tie up that much in 3 guys. They've seen some that they've already, I'm sure, tied up in those guys and positions and things like that. So it is certainly going to be one of those things where SMU will continue to recruit Kenneth Goodwin and has, but if they do end up parting ways with Markel Dabney, then you're coming from a position of even a stronger stance. Like you could really, be able to say, hey, Kenneth, we had a change now. We have more cap space. It's like free agency and signing a rookie contract right now. I mean, I know that sucks and it is paying for, pay for play, but that's the world we're living in now. The good thing is each team has to monitor their cap situation and spend accordingly. Now we can NIL, whatever, legitimate, illegitimate NIL, that's a totally different discussion. But you're not going to see programs do that piece of it the same. And certain players aren't going to be able to command, no matter where they go, real NIL. But rev share is real. Like you can't necessarily, tie up a $3 million high school player. You just can't do it in rev share. It's very, very difficult to do that. So you've got to do true NIL. You've got to have a general mindset on how to get that done in the right way. And there's a bunch of different ways that schools, I'm sure, are going to figure that out. And Deloitte is going to run the NIL Go clearinghouse, and people are going to learn, or it's going to go underground. So, we'll see kind of how all that develops. But from a rev share perspective, when you're talking to high school kids, it's very important with where SMU is, because SMU can say, hey, you are a number one guy for us. And I'm not talking about, Kenneth Goodwin, but any position. Hey, you're a number one guy for us. Whereas insert an SEC school, they might value that player differently. They might have them fourth on their board at the position. And they say, hey, we can offer you less rev share, but we really like you. We think you could play here and all that. But they are recruiting, maybe a higher guy. There are positions at SMU that I'm sure, with regards to their competition, they're just valuing players differently. So it's a part where SMU can certainly help itself in recruiting, and that's why I think they have a shot at a top 25 class. But it's also something that is just a really difficult line to kind of walk at times. So that is the drama that unfolded at linebacker. I didn't think we'd necessarily go almost 15 minutes on linebacker talk to kick things off, but it is a position that I feel strongly about, that SMU has to get two high school guys long-term. It doesn't mean if they end up coming away with one that it's sunk or whatever, they can go out and get a portal, maybe a young 2025 that redshirted somewhere and is now on to the next program after just a year and entering the portal. And, you kind of even all that up and you get a guy with 4 years to play, because they only had one high school linebacker in Mark Villasana. They added Kyle Firm as well from the junior college ranks, but it's a position that after the 2026 season, I think there's four linebackers you'd lose, including two starters and one, consistent contributor in Brandon Maiazono. So it's a position that needs to kind of similar to wide receiver, needs to finish out strong from the high school ranks and develop your own in that regard, like they've developed Alex Kilgore and are developing Brandon Maiazono and things like that. So we'll follow all that for you guys at ontheponyexpress.com. And before we go any further, I do want to remind you guys as well about our friends at StatusJet, statusjet.com. David Henry and his team can help build you the perfect trip today. They can get you, your family, and friends on the right track to the vacation of a lifetime. And so reach out to them today and find out what options work for you and your family, your friends, and go from there. And when you mention On the Pony Express, you get a discount on a round trip flight. So start planning football season or that last minute 4th of July trip with our friends at StatusJet today. SMU is set to host multiple official visitors this weekend, but things are now a little bit more so in question. Let's start with the two prospects that were expected to come in for official visits this weekend, or two of them that were going to come in for official visits this weekend. One of them, Dejon Moore, 4-star offensive lineman from the class of 2026, a longtime target for SMU, is now committed to Pitt after his official visit this weekend. This is where this is my opinion over the course of a long time of doing this, but having the last official visit isn't always the greatest thing. But Dejon Moore commits to Pitt on his official visit when he was set to head to SMU. And there's a lot of confidence around SMU going into this weekend's trip. And instead, he commits to Pitt, an ACC foe, long way away from home, and a nearly top 200 player in the country, a 4-star, is now headed to play for Pitt. We will see if SMU can change things and get him on an official visit and make the move. But this is not a good development for SMU's offensive line recruiting. And Dejon Moore, look, 4-star, almost top 200 prospect, top 10 interior offensive lineman. There is a mindset around Pitt. There is I would say, like, just general feeling, at least just me as an outsider, that kind of nastiness, hardworking, obviously the city speaks for itself, but just kind of that blue collar offensive lineman mentality is there. So I can see how it would impress him. But this is a poor development for SMU on the offensive line front. I mean, Dejon Moore was probably, going to be one of their top guys. I know they had Papunga Katoa, higher up the board, as far as interior guys go, although Dejon was a little bit more of a true center kind of idea for them as far as recruiting him. Kamoy Hoy White out of Hawaii is somebody that they still feel strongly about. He went to Cal and then is headed to Nebraska, I believe, this weekend. And they're working on some other options as well on the interior of the offensive line. They're still in it with Drew Evers. I know Ohio State certainly made a big impression there. SMU's got to battle that. But this is a recruiting loss as it stands that is not a good one for SMU. And I'll shoot it straight. I mean, Dejon Moore, told me going into this weekend that he was going to be at SMU next weekend. And, quote, I can't wait to get back to my hometown. And instead, Pitt gets him to commit. So this is something that SMU is going to have to, turn the tide on if they want to flip him and do it quickly, because he's a really good prospect. And, SMU needs to round out this offensive line class with some high-end talent. And I said it, going into, this summer, this offensive line class that they've been recruiting for a while, this would be one that, wouldn't tell the whole tale, because I think Garen Justice does a great job and, doesn't get the credit he deserves as far as development and putting together the offensive line that he has for SMU, for Kevin Jennings, the way they ran the football last year and everything. But you still got to get a couple of these bigger name guys in the state. And just even from a perception and ability to kind of recruit perspective. And we'll see kind of how it goes the rest of the way. And there's a long way to signing day. And I mean, we saw that with Markel Dabney just at the top of the show, just how quickly things can change, just over the course of a month and a few days. But SMU has to get back on the right track here a little bit to close out June and land Kamoy, maybe make a move for Drew Evers. I think if you get Drew Evers and no one else from here, I mean, you're fine, whatever. Like, figure out if you can get Avery Morcho or Evan Goodwin at the tackle position, and you're good. You're good. That would be very satisfactory. And, Papunga Katoa, I mean, that is a huge, massive recruiting win over Oklahoma and A&M, and both schools were still pushing for him to visit. He did not. He's been a vital recruiter for this staff in this class. And Kamoy, things continue to look good there from what I hear behind the scenes, but got to survive these visits now. To really make this class pop just a little bit more and kind of, I think, finish the job the right way here is Evan Goodwin, Avery Morcho, Drew Evers. One of those three, if you can't get Dejon Moore back, to visit, you've got to find a way to get at least one of those. And that would mean you got kind of your sleeper in Kamoy. You have a big name in state with Papunga Katoa. And then you find a way to, nail down those splash. Avery, you're battling TCU and A&M. Evan Goodwin, you're battling plenty of big time programs. He's got Mississippi State coming up. He was just at Wisconsin, Mizzou, Oklahoma State as well. Those are some big name programs that SMU's battling for. You've also got Drew Evers. You're battling Ohio State. You're battling Texas A&M. Huge opponents in those classes. But got to get them across the finish line and really kind of solidify long term. Again, a lot of time spent on this class, a lot of time spent on a select few prospects for this class, and SMU's got to come away with a little bit more bang in this class. So I don't sweat high school recruiting as much anymore because you always have the portal to fall back on. But for this program to continue, and Rhett Lashlee said this, and they want to sign bigger high school classes because now they're in the ACC and they have that, they have that ability to. And we've seen it step up at wide receiver so far. We've seen it step up. 4-star running back Christian Rhodes is committed. They flipped Ty Hawkins last year, from TCU. They signed a great wide receiver class of 25. Andre Nickerson's a good-looking tight end prospect. They have some other beat out Oklahoma. I mean, for half their commits, it seems like this cycle. So they are taking the right steps, but you got to make a couple of more splashes in the trenches. It's just got to happen. And then the other prospect is a sleeper, Ty Krethers out of Garland High School. He did not play varsity in 2024, from what I understand, but SMU worked him out at camp, loved what they saw, and instead he is now committed to Texas State. And I think this is a prime example of what I said at the beginning of the show and kind of throughout that early part with rev share, because Texas State is going to do rev share. They are trending towards a Pac-12 invitation, which is wild, but that's a different podcast, different story. But Ty Krethers goes on his official visit to Texas State this past weekend and commits. Now, SMU had been turning up the heat, but I also don't think SMU is going to sit there, turn up the heat, and pay an exorbitant amount of money for Ty Krethers. I just don't think that's going to happen. They can go back to the drawing board and try to figure out DeQuayne Prevost or flipping Ty Krethers long term, but I don't think it's a good use of funds to prove a point to say, oh, Ty, what's it going to take to flip from Texas State if he does in fact come on his official visit to SMU this weekend? So crazy developments, though. Both of those commitments happened in about an hour on Sunday, and I was like, whoa, okay, that has shaken up things for SMU in the world of recruiting, and we'll see kind of where it goes from here, because those were two guys that they were expected to host on official visits this weekend. There's two more that they're expecting to host, and we'll have those covered for you at ontheponyexpress.com. Sign up for just $1 today and join us on the message board. It'll be a fun week while you can test it out. The final week of recruiting really for this month, as the dead period will hit, I believe, Sunday night. Coaches will be hitting vacation and recruiting from their phones for sure after a wild, really 3-4 months sprint from spring football to now. So before we continue on with a bunch more recruiting conversation, do want to remind you guys about our friends at the Thomas Auto Group. Appreciate all they did for me and my family, getting us into the right vehicle for us when we needed it the most. And when you go there, you're treated like family. They took care of us in such a great way. Just love what they did for us, and appreciate all they do for you guys as well. Employee pricing on new and pre-owned vehicles. That's what you get with the Thomas Promise as well when you mention On the Pony Express. So they'll give you that price point and also give you that attention to detail that you'd expect from a big life-changing decision. Everyone remembers when you buy a vehicle. So whether you need to buy pre-owned or new, or you need commercial grade vehicles, they've got that as well. They've got a great service department and collision center as well. So head up 75 to McKinney and check out their Ford, Subaru, Volkswagen, and Mitsubishi dealerships today. Recruiting has picked up in the 2027 class as well. This is that time of year where programs can now start talking to rising juniors, or now, if you want to call them juniors, you can call them juniors. They are able to be contacted. That started Sunday night. Well, also last week, SMU hosted a camp on campus, and an elite camp, time where they got some of their top targets on campus. And one of them, Malachi Ziegler, the four-star quarterback out of Benton, Louisiana, was back in town and threw in front of Rhett Lashlee, De'Eric King, the entire coaching staff. And I got to be honest, he put on one of the best camp performances I've seen. There wasn't, many prospects out there as a whole. It was a good, just solid group of their top targets. And Malachi Ziegler just had a really, really good showing. I mean, from how he carries himself to how he throws the football, all of those things were on point Thursday afternoon in the indoor with SMU. And I think he's somebody now that you've really got to circle as, I think, the top guy, the one that you're really hoping, if you're SMU football, to get on board. I think that he's just now separated himself in that regard. And I don't mean that as any disrespect to anybody else they're recruiting. That's just my take on it. And, the push is on, and quarterbacks are recruiting earlier and earlier, and SMU wants to get Malachi Ziegler in the boat. So we'll kind of see how things go over the course of the coming days, weeks, months, all those things. But when it comes to quarterbacks, I mean, Malachi Ziegler put on an absolute clinic. I was there, watched it, and Rhett Lashlee spent plenty of time chatting with him after camp. And SMU also had another top quarterback target on campus. They had Carson White on campus. One of the top state of Texas arms was in town, getting a chance to throw in front of the staff, as was Bryce McCurdy out of Waco Robinson. Two highly thought of prospects who have been on the rise from a recruiting standpoint. Did throw, watched both of them. Both had good days at times, and flashes at moments. But I did think Malachi Ziegler was kind of, a little bit of a cut above. I think with Carson White, the interesting thing is he plays baseball pretty competitively. And if he would focus full time on football, I see the vision there with Carson White, and it's impressive. Like when he throws the football and it comes out, the right way, it really has that pop and that pace to it that really stands out in a big way. And so I think SMU still very much going to recruit Bryce McCurdy, still very much going to recruit Carson White. Colton Nusmeire is another huge name for SMU that they're on in the class of 2027, the younger brother of LSU starting quarterback Garrett Nusmeire. He's a top 100 prospect. He is, one of the top overall prospects in the country, and really one of the guys in the state that has had their name up there pretty high, and SMU's gotten some time with him and watched him and had him on campus and things like that. And we'll kind of see how things roll with Colton Nusmeire as a whole. But I would say when it comes to the quarterback spot for SMU, Malachi Ziegler is definitely put them very high up there when it comes to him being wanted, and just kind of his overall standing with this recruitment. So Malachi's got a bunch of visits he still wants to take. We had a huge update on him on the site. If you need it, just chime in on the comments, and we'll pass it along to you. But those are kind of the latest on 2027 quarterback recruiting. But I thought the secondary also had a really strong day at camps, as Ricky Hunley and Scott Simons had a few big-time prospects on campus for camp. And in the 2027 class, 4-star cornerback Montre Jackson out of Garland Lakeview Centennial, same high school as Kamar Wheaton, and Trey Wilson was back on the Hilltop. He then visited Oklahoma the next day, and that one really is what I think is kind of the early battle right here, I would say. And from talking with Montre, I think that's a fair statement. Oklahoma is recruiting him really hard. Baylor, Ole Miss, a couple of others, Texas. But I think SMU right now is one of those top schools for him, truly at the top for him. And we'll kind of see where things go from there with Montre Jackson. But he wasn't the only top defensive back on campus. They also had Jaquan Snell, one of the top prospects in the entire country, top 25 prospect, number one safety in America, back on campus working out with Scott Simons. That is, I think, probably one of the coolest things when you see high-end prospects and you know how heavily recruited they are, and they don't have to work out anywhere, and they show up. They show up on campus and work out and go to work. And those are the guys that SMU loves. Like when you follow the recruiting storylines and you hear some of the coaches talk about these players and we break them down on the site, with after signing day when they're allowed to comment on them, there's kind of a recurring theme, and it's that they've camped. And you don't always, hear about the ones that camp at the public ones. It's the ones that they come out on a random day in the summer and they go and they absolutely just work out with the staff. That's what the staff likes a lot. And that's what, we saw with a lot of these top targets in the secondary. And then Jaden Fields, who is probably as pretty as it comes when it comes to how you draw up just an athletic profile. One of the top defensive backs on the board for SMU. He could play a little wide receiver. He could play a little defensive back for sure. That's what they're recruiting him at. There's some on staff that want to fight over him and make him a wide receiver. But he was also back on campus working out with the staff. So a huge, huge deal to get him there. And, they're going to continue. They've got a few more days. I think they're hosting another camp here this week. And they will have their O-line, D-line targets on campus, hopefully, and we'll be out there to cover it. So stay tuned for that. But these are the guys that, from the overall, camp were the top prospects on campus, like rated and all those things. But SMU wasn't done. They also offered one of the top running backs in the state for 2027, Carell Halter Jr. Yes, you are that old. If you know his dad, Carell Halter, who played 8 seasons in the NFL for Philadelphia Eagles, were one. I remember. I think he was the backup running back on that Eagles team that the Tampa Bay Bucks beat in the NFC Championship, and of course the Eagles had gone to a couple Super Bowls during that time, but hadn't won one just yet. But they now live here in Texas, and he goes to. I think he went to Covenant Christian last year. I don't know if he's still listed as going there. If not, there it is. He's transferred to Liberty Christian. I didn't know if that news was out. I knew it was happening, but he did transfer to Liberty Christian, where Jason Witten is the head coach of the team. So we'll be looking forward to getting out there and seeing him. But he did pick up an offer from the staff as well, and will be one of the top guys in 2027. It seems like for them. And we'll be tracking his development closely. Of course, the staff is starting to dish out more 2027 offers, and we will be there to cover it for you guys every step of the way. And it's a great time to be at ontheponyexpress.com, but it's always a great time to be with our friends at Manny's. Manny's Tex-Mex, 4 locations across DFW. Make sure you say queso queso when you talk with your server about your bill to get 10% off your food when you do dine in or do carry out. That doesn't apply for like Uber Eats and all that stuff, unfortunately, or alcohol, but say queso queso and get 10% off your food order at Manny's Tex-Mex. They've got 4 locations. They're in Mockingbird, and they're right there in Lakewood off Mockingbird, and then Coit and Campbell up north, just south of me. And then, of course, the Saxe location, and then the Rockwall Heath location right over there near the lake. All great locations with the patios, all those things. Great margaritas, really love their food. We appreciate everything Manny's does for us on the podcast. We've got some things in the works with them for a big kickoff luncheon that we're working on. So if you're interested in sponsoring and helping us put that together, reach out to me. We're looking for local businesses to kind of help make it a little bit more doable with bringing in players and doing all those things. So reach out to me. You can email me, Billy, Billy, .embody@on3.com. And Manny's is kind of, piece of that. So looking forward to announcing more about that in the coming weeks. And we'll get that scheduled for before the season. So look, guys, that's all I've got for you guys today on the Pony Express podcast. Really appreciate all the support you guys have given us on the site. Went recruiting heavy today. We've got a bunch of stuff coming on summer workouts as well on the site. We've also got interviews with Kyle Cooper and Zanaya Hariel. I'm just getting there on her name. It's a softer Hariel, kind of roll off the tongue, but a little bit better. But we've got some interviews coming for you guys on the podcast front, and also a lot of team tidbits. Summer workouts now a few weeks in. So be sure to be on the site and get that intel on how the Mustangs are looking this summer. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. We'll catch you later this week with multiple more editions of the podcast, and hope everybody had a great Monday. Catch you guys next time on another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU_on3 and on Instagram at on3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.